And I got sucked into that game so much that within a year, I was spending 12 to 14 hours a day.
Wow.
Playing the World of Warcraft.
Wow.
I was arranging my schedule around. I was turning down social outings with friends.
I'm Susan Goss, and as a seasoned therapist of more than 15 years, I'm honored to have had the opportunity to gain so much wisdom from so many people and love passing that knowledge on to others. So join me and some of my favorite friends as we share some tangible truths with you.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tangible Truth Podcast. I'm Susan Goss, and I have the most special guest with me, Ian McCready. Hey, Ian.
Hey, how's it going, Susan?
I am so thrilled to have you on the podcast, Ian. I've been waiting for this for quite some time, ever since I've heard you.
Glad to hear that.
Yes, I am so excited for our listeners to be able to gain the knowledge. Just the little bit that I got made me go, I have got to have Ian on the podcast for our listeners. They're going to love you. And it's because it's on such an important topic, Ian. You know, you're over your own ministry. So I love that for one thing, because I love shared partnerships. And I think, we're better together. All of that stuff, I think is so true. We're not meant to do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love it that we're here together. So I just want you to share with our listeners about, number one, your ministry, and number two, why you have a ministry, what got you here, and what this whole thing is about. I'm going to let you share that instead of me. And then once you do, I'll jump right on in. How about that?
That sounds great, Susan.
Okay.
So our ministry is called Self-Ctrl, and our mission is to help youth and adults and families redeem their time from technology, screen time, video games, YouTube, social media, whatever it might be that technology enables, redeeming that time, getting it back for doing the good works that God created us for.
Wow, that is huge.
So
redeeming your time.
It's a big mission. Sometimes it feels like we're looking up at a tidal wave, but I'm so excited to be in the space, because if you look at how we got started, you'd have to check back all the way into my childhood. I grew up playing video games, loved games, and all the way through middle school and high school. If you had asked me, what's your dream job? I would have told you I want to make video games. And as I continued on into college, I had just a habit around video games, and I wouldn't call it a bad habit because I didn't get in trouble. I still got good grades. I was a very compliant kid. I was involved in church. And as I went off into college, I got to live on campus all 4 years. And now I got to set the rules. And if you would have checked in on me about halfway through sophomore year, I started playing a game my first year at college called World of Warcraft. And I got sucked into that game so much that within a year, I was spending 12 to 14 hours a day.
Wow.
Playing the World of Warcraft.
Wow.
I was arranging my schedule around. I was turning down social outings with friends. I was getting scared myself. I was Googling signs of video game addiction. And I didn't get out of that until what I believe was divine intervention from God, where I didn't get an item, like a silly little item in game, but it meant so much to me because how much and how entrenched and how much of my identity was wrapped up in the World of Warcraft, that not getting that item finally woke me up into how much of my time and life I had poured into this. And so by the grace of God, I walked away from that game that I was addicted to. And I wish that's where it ended. That's like that was the only problem with video games that I had. But as I continued and graduated college, I still had conflict with my wife. And I still remember her saying to me, "Hey, you'd rather just play video games tonight, huh?" And the truth was, yes, selfishly, I did. Like we could be spending time together and I could be checking in on her about her day. But instead, I just wanted to zone out. I wanted to go to my games and deal with my stress in that way. And more times than I care to admit, in my 20s, I pulled all-nighters on a work night because I just couldn't turn off the game or the level. And I'd beat myself up and say, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
And so video games were continuing to be a problem for me. And when my daughter was born in 2017, I still remember her doing some tummy time there on the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm instinctually hiding my phone behind my leg
Ian.
because something inside me says, I don't want her seeing her dad, even at this young age, playing a game, ignoring her. But that's exactly what I was doing.
I'll do it in secret.
I'll do it in secret.
Yeah.
She won't, this won't impact her. And not long after that, I went up to a men's retreat at my church, and our pastor was talking about idolatry. And I knew I didn't have any idols. If I did have one, it might be video games. God opened my eyes at that retreat. He opened my eyes that I was going to video games instead of my Heavenly Father who cares for me, who can actually lift my burdens and help me. I was going to video games for my joy, my contentment, my stress relief. And they helped for a little bit, but the next day they just give it all back to you. You still have your problems in life. And so at that men's retreat, I said, I'm taking a 6-month break at least, and I'm quitting all video games. And one of the most important things I did was I told my wife, I told my friends, told some of my coworkers, and they all helped keep me accountable.
Good.
And within that 6 months, some of those friends said, hey, Ian, can you meet up with our son? Can you grab coffee with our nephew? Hey, Ian, what should we do about our daughter on social media or on Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is? And I started getting invited into these conversations. So on the other side of my idol was the will of God for my life, for me to actually serve God and serve others by doing that. And that's how Self-Ctrl was born. But I just want to narrow into this for a little bit because it wasn't just the kids. That's how it started. But then friends started coming to me and saying, hey, Ian, they always whisper, right? You whisper when you're confessing something, right?
These are your age.
These are my age.
Okay.
So I had a friend, he said, hey, Ian, I got 3 kids. I'm 35. I'm trying to get my master's degree on top of working full time. And I can't stop playing this dumb mobile game. I've deleted it like 17 times off my phone, but I just reinstall it every time I'm stressed out. And then I had a mentor of mine in my church. He was an elder in our church. And I'm telling him about what I'm up to, right? He obviously doesn't have problems with technology or video games. And he just interrupts me. He says, Ian, hold on. I'm on level 7,624 of this game on my phone. Why are you telling me that? He said, I think I need to stop. I think you need to stop. Susan, it's not just the kids. Every single person in today's world has been introduced to addictive technology that if we don't build self-control around it, it will take as much of our time as we are willing to part with. And typically, that time is impacting our relationships. And I believe what God wants us to be doing with our time in our lives. And we are all still functioning, right? But we have to build self-control around this to, I believe, to live up and do the good works that God wants us to.
Phenomenal. And I am, Carrie's over there doing our editing and she's clapping and I'm clapping silently. Listeners can't hear me, but what a powerful story. You know, our stories are so powerful and, you know, they're your story, but they're the story also, Ian. What is so powerful about it is that the stories I hear on my sofa day in and day out, they're stories of our listeners.
Yes.
And if they're not their personal story, they're stories of their neighbors, their family members, their cousins, their, you know, keep going down the list. So thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing your personal story.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it so much because it is powerful because it's your story. And then here's what, when you're transparent and vulnerable like that, what happened in your life is all these people come to you like, okay, Ian has shared. So then, of course, you had the teenagers come to you. Yes, but you had your colleagues come to you. And then you went to your mentor who then was already addicted, way, way deep addicted. And so you found immediately the issue was so much greater than you ever knew. And at the beginning, I want the listeners to know, you thought, I'm alone. I'm alone in this. I'm what is wrong with me?
My friends laughed at me when I said I had a problem with video games because they're like, really? We got bigger problems than that.
Yeah.
You have a problem with video games?
Yeah. And then you found out I'm not alone
Not at all.
in this world. And I want the listeners to understand, and where Ian and I are going to take off next is, this is just like we did a podcast. And if you didn't listen to it, I want you to go back to the podcast in February that we did on pornography. This is the same predatory. It's just the same.
Absolutely.
It's exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
We did one on pornography. This is one on technology.
Ted Shimmer, who you did that with, he's been a kind of a big brother for me in this ministry. It's been fantastic.
Go. So see, when y'all get together, it's just like, oh, yes, 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 and yes, 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 because it's that same predatory feel, isn't it? And because the dopamine is the same thing in the brain, like I've got to have more. And as the therapist in me, I'm going, all I can see in my brain, the medical therapeutic side, I see that tolerance-based addicted cycle, that line that we draw in our head about the first hit. You can never get that first hit that you always got. So, you know, that game that you were talking about, that you had to get this item, but you were always striving to get it, but you never could. I mean, you go back for more, just like pornography. You can never get to that first hit, if it's 98%, you're always going to go back and you want more, a different kind of pornography. And same with video games. You want more and more and more. That's why your mentor was at 7,000, whatever he said. You just can't get enough.
And it happens with social media or YouTube or whatever it is, right? So if we look at video games, we win a match, we feel amazing, or we beat a level, but now we're given a slightly more challenging level. We're paired up with people that are slightly better than us. Yeah. So we're constantly in the video games of today's age versus even when I was growing up, they can 24/7 match you with a perfectly tailored competitive game. And it's always close and tight, and you always want to get to that next rank, or you want to get that same feeling of being on the leaderboard and you're number one and you're highlighted as the player of the game. Like there are so many ways where it keeps you coming back. With social media, it's the same thing, right? When you get 25 likes per post and then now you're at 30. Well, if you get 25, you don't feel as good. You always need some more likes, right? You need some more engagement. You need some more validation. And each one of these things has these tolerance-based addiction cycle where you are chasing that dopamine that you got in the very beginning. But the difficult part is you're going to need more, and our kids are going to need more. Whether it's just watching videos on YouTube, they're going to need more time on YouTube, or they're going to need more exciting or engaging or dramatic videos to keep us engaged. And that is what the algorithms of those platforms will deliver up to us. Yes. And it'll keep us engaged.
Keep us engaged is the key. And so do you want to explain to the listeners what dopamine really is?
Yeah. So dopamine is how God made our brain. Right?
Exactly.
It's a neurotransmitter, and it is essentially a way for our brains to pass information back and forth. And specifically, dopamine is our brain saying we enjoyed something. But the interesting thing for us to know when it comes to addiction is, and this is Harvard and Stanford scientists and researchers have found, that dopamine doesn't just release when you enjoy something. Now, when you anticipate doing that activity, dopamine releases to motivate you to do it. So when your kid knows that they enjoy going to screens or video games or YouTube or whatever it is, when they walk in the door from school, right, they're going to walk in and dopamine is going to release in their brain and say, what do I want to do? Do I want to go run outside? Do I want to go play? What do I want to do? Well, I know I can get some dopamine from screens, and it's going to release in their brain. They're going to feel good just getting excited about maybe I'm going to get to go play on my screens or my device. So it releases to motivate us towards these specific behaviors. But in a healthy dopamine cycle, we come back down to a normal level of dopamine after we do that activity. So think about eating your favorite food, right? You get excited, you anticipate having that meal and you eat it, and then your stomach is full and you come back down to a normal level of dopamine. But with screens, you can go on essentially a dopamine high. You go on this roller coaster that you can't seem to get off of, because the screen will just give you the next post or the next video, or it will auto play the next Netflix episode. It will just continue to let you ride this dopamine cycle. And it won't tell you get off. Your brain won't say take a break.
It doesn't get satisfied.
No, it doesn't.
Very dangerous.
Very dangerous, because when you actually get off of that, we go into basically a period called a dopamine crash. And if anyone's been a little bit moody or grumpy, or your child has been moody or grumpy after spending a little bit too long on a device, that's what's going on. Our brain is looking for these high hits of dopamine, and it's not getting them. And the important thing that I think every parent and every person needs to understand about dopamine is that the researchers found that if we continue to train our brain in this way, we can actually develop essentially a dependency on that dopamine, where the dopamine doesn't release as much and releases 30 to 50% less for the normal day-to-day activities like going to school, doing our homework, doing chores, eating dinner with the family. And you see this healthy things. You see it most pronounced in like a middle school child. Like an 11-year-old girl doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning. She doesn't want to go to school. She doesn't want to do anything but go back to her device. And it's because her brain has literally been trained over weeks or months or years that it gets dopamine from this device. And that's all that it wants. Their brain wants to do. And their brain is literally releasing less dopamine to have them do the normal day-to-day things of life. And in those cases, what typically a doctor or a certified addiction specialist would recommend is you need to take a complete break for up to 2 months. A lot of times we take a week off, but then we go right back to it. And there's not enough time for the dopamine levels in your brain to reset. You need to take a longer break. And that does get in that case of the 11-year-old girl. I've dealt with that specific case, and the parents said she came back. It wasn't all perfect. We still had behavioral issues, but we had our fun-loving girl back, and she was laughing. She was engaging at the dinner table again. And she was stuck in what I believe is a very dangerous, cut and dry case of a dopamine addiction. And it was YouTube Kids. She was 11 years old. And so that's why dopamine and screens are so dangerous, especially for our young kids, because they don't really understand what's going on, and they don't understand why their brain is just pushing them to spend more and more time on their devices.
Yeah, 100%. This is so great for all of us to hear, and so great for our listeners. And Ian, so that we don't go over on this podcast, we're going to stop here. Listeners, do not stop. Jump right on to our next episode, because we're going to continue this. Is that okay, Ian?
That sounds great.
Okay. We love you, listeners, and can't wait for you to join us on our next episode. You will not want to miss it. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Tangible Truth Podcast, part of the KLRC Podcast Network.